Have you ever watched a movie and liked the songs you heard from it, that you wait for the end credits to see the title and the artist, or even search for this information online? These songs enhance our movie experience, but I believe the great movie soundtracks can stand alone by itself, and you can even enjoy it separately from the movie. Through the years, I have collected a bunch of movie soundtracks on CD, so I would like to share my top 10 favorite movie soundtracks from my CD collection. These are mostly compilation albums and don't include film score like Star Wars or any of those John Williams composition. That will be for another video. My choices and ranking are based on the likability of the songs, the overall idea behind the album, how much it can evoke feelings and transport you to a certain place and time, and a little bit of the quality of the sound. Number 10 is Kill Bill Volume 1 Original Soundtrack, released on September 2003 and is the soundtrack to the first volume of Quentin Tarantino's two-part film. There are 17 tracks here, but 2 are just characters' dialogue from the movie. My favorite track is Battle Without Honor or Humanity, which is an instrumental piece by Japanese rock musician Tomoyasu Hotei. Makes you feel you're about to jump into action. That haunting voice of Nancy Sinatra on the track Bang Bang is the perfect opening to the saga that is about to unfold.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks. He wore black and I wore white.
Instrumental tracks like The Grand Duel and Twisted Nerve makes you feel you are in a late 70s Western and samurai movie. Number 9 is Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Mix Volume 1, released on July 2014 and is the soundtrack for this Marvel Studios superhero film. The 12 songs on this album are supposed to be the songs of the mixtape owned by the lead character. My favorite is Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum, which was surprisingly not featured on the film. The movie is basically a space adventure, and this mixtape is used to show the character as coming from Earth from a specific time. The songs on this album are all classics, like I'm Not in Love by 10cc, Come and Get Your Love by Redbone, I Want You Back by Jackson 5, Moon Age Daydream by David Bowie, and Cherry Bomb by The Runaways. Number 8 is the soundtrack from the film Juno, released on December 2007 and from Jason Reitman's coming-of-age comedy drama film. The album has 19 tracks and contains mostly indie rock songs from American singer-songwriter Kimya Dawson and her bands Antsy Pants and the Moldy Peaches. The album also has songs from Belle and Sebastian, The Kinks, and Sonic Youth. I like all the songs here, but my favorite is The Kinks' A Well-Respected Man.
'Cause he gets up in the morning, and he goes to work at 9, and he comes back home at 5:30, gets the same train every time, 'cause his world is built on.
The last track is a nice duet between the lead stars covering Anyone Else But You by the Moldy Peaches.
You're a part-time lover and a full-time friend. The monkey on your back is the latest trend. Don't see what anyone can see in anyone else.
Number 7 is the soundtrack from the film Pulp Fiction. This is the soundtrack from Quentin Tarantino's 1994 film released on September 1994. The popular Dusty Springfield's version of Son of a Preacher Man is on this album. Tarantino used songs from various genres which were suggested by his friends who also were credited as music consultants. The most popular is Dick Dale's rendition of Mr. Lou, which is played on the opening credits of the movie, and also Al Green's Let's Stay Together.
Whatever you
The song that had become popular is Urge Overkill's cover of Neil Diamond's Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. There are also snippets of dialogue from the movie included on the tracks. The songs worked well on the movie because they fit the mood and is related to the story he is telling. Number 6 is School of Rock soundtrack, released on September 2003 and one of my favorite movies. If this list is just based on my enjoyability of the movie, this album will be at the top. There are 3 tracks here out of the listed 17 that are basically just cuts of Jack Black's character's dialogue. But this album has great classic tracks like Cream's Sunshine of Your Love, Stevie Nicks' Edge of 17, and AC/DC's It's a Long Way to the Top. However, my favorite is Heal Me, I'm Heartsick by No Vacancy. Great lyrics and great melody.
And I'm broken, I'm haunted, and weeping, the blood of heaven flowing like.
This album captures Jack Black's character's love for classic rock and a kid's feeling on discovering great rock songs. Number 5 is the soundtrack from the film Once, released on May 2007, and from this beautiful movie about a busker meeting a raw talent and going on a journey to produce their own music. The album featured 13 tracks. All of them were performed by Glenn Hansard and Marketa Irglova, who both stars on this movie, with one song being performed by the band Interference. My favorite track is Say It To Me Now. This opened the movie with a powerful performance from Hansard singing emotionally on an almost empty street, which set the tone of the film.
I'm trying hard to work it out, and so much has gone misunderstood, and this mystery only leads to doubt.
Almost all songs here are melancholic, heartfelt, and full of emotion. Another favorite of mine is Falling Slowly, a duet of Glenn Hansard and Marketa Irglova, which won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. Number 4 is the soundtrack from the film Singles. The soundtrack was released on June 1992, which is almost 3 months before the film. The album is very much a tribute to the Seattle music scene in the early 90s. There are 13 tracks on the album and features mostly new work from then contemporary artists like Soundgarden's Chris Cornell and Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder. It also features past Seattle artists like Jimi Hendrix and the Love Mongers and Paul Westenberg, the ex-Replacements member from Minneapolis. I like all the songs on this album, which closes with the Smashing Pumpkins singing the song Drown. The soundtrack is considered to have helped open the door to the popularity of Seattle grunge in the early 1990s and one of the best-selling 90s movie soundtracks. Number 3 is the soundtrack from the film I Am Sam, released on January 2002 and from a 2001 Sean Penn drama film. This album is made up entirely of cover versions of songs by the Beatles. It was originally intended to consist of original Beatles recordings, but producers was unable to obtain the rights, so they commissioned popular 2000 artists like Amy Mann, Stereophonics, Eddie Vedder, Sarah McLachlan, Sheryl Crow, Rufus Wainwright, and Black Crowes. My favorite is Stereophonics' Don't Let Me Down.
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
But you must also hear Sarah McLachlan's rendition of Blackbird, Rufus Wainwright on Across the Universe, Eddie Vedder's You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, and Nick Cave singing Let It Be. Number 2 is the soundtrack from the film Trainspotting, released on 1996 and from this controversial Danny Boyle movie. There are 14 tracks on this album, which include songs from Iggy Pop, Brian Eno, Primal Scream, Blur, and Lou Reed. Iggy Pop's Lust for Life was the perfect opening for this movie. But my favorite is Lou Reed's Perfect Day, that has a slow piano playing and somber singing from Reed, which some people say is an ode to heroin addiction. But I consider it a romantic song which is delivered with a tinge of sadness but is still hopeful.
And then later, when it gets dark, we go home. Just a perfect day.
The music on this album goes along mostly with the iconic images on the movie. This soundtrack is often included on lists of best movie soundtracks. And number one for me is the soundtrack from the movie Almost Famous. Released on September 2000 and is about an aspiring writer but still a high school boy accompanying an up-and-coming band on their concert tour. There are 17 tracks on this album that includes a number of gems from the 60s and 70s, which perfectly captures the classic rock popularity at that time. There are songs from Simon and Garfunkel, The Who, The Beach Boys, Rod Stewart, the Allman Brothers, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Led Zeppelin, and David Bowie. My favorite track is I've Seen All Good People You're Moved by Yes.
I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way.
Everybody is probably familiar by now on that iconic scene on the bus where everybody is singing along to Elton John's Tiny Dancer. This movie is often referred to as a love letter to rock and roll, and the soundtrack should introduce the new generation of music lovers to classic rock. And that's the top 10 soundtrack albums from my CD collection. Of course, these do not cover all the soundtracks in movie history, but just the soundtracks that I have been exposed to. So please share your favorite movie soundtracks so I can also try out something new. Happy listening!